We have an Thank you, Will. We have an awesome company here that is here to share some resume tips and tips to help you land that internship or future job. So we're looking forward to it. Save your questions for the end. Make sure that you take full advantage of this event and make sure that you ask all of the questions that you have. Before we get started though, I just want to share a little bit about HBCU Connect and the relationship that we have with Palo Alto Networks. So HBCU Connect, well, no, let me stop. Let me introduce myself. I am Tamika Wilson, event manager for HBCU Connect and a graduate of the illustrious Winston-Salem State University, go SU. Now about HBCU Connect, we have been around since 1999, and our mission is to connect students and grads from historically Black colleges and universities with opportunities very similar to the one that you are here with Palo Alto Networks tonight, but also other events and other opportunities to engage on our website. Now, we started doing events about 10 years ago with Microsoft, and now many other companies are jumping on board. So if this is your first event, we welcome you. You are in the right place because people are actually getting hired from these events, and they have the opportunity to get inside information to help you land a job. Now, a bit about our relationship with Palo Alto Networks. We started working with them last year with our first successful event. And what has impressed me the most about Palo Alto Networks is their effort to connect with diverse candidates like yourself, despite us being in a pandemic. And they're also willing to partner with us on multiple events. So this will not be the last time that you see or hear about Palo Alto Network and HBCU Connect. And I also am impressed with the type of event that they're giving tonight. They are providing tips on how to gear your resume for a job. Now, the opportunity for you tonight is to get some great advice from insiders at Palo Alto Networks to perfect that resume to help you get that job. And also, you are in a great place to network. Once we open up that chat box for your questions, feel free to provide your LinkedIn information, as our speakers will do as well. Provide your LinkedIn information, connect with these speakers, and see what can happen from there. All right? Well, now we're going to get started with our event. I am going to pass the mic to Alana. Alana, it's up to you.
Okay, thank you, Tamika, and hi everyone. I'm like seeing the chat going, and I want to put my stuff in too. So, but we'll get going with our introductions. Lovely introduction, Tamika. Said it all. But yeah, I guess we'll kind of move on. So I'm just going to introduce everyone. I will be monitoring the chat today. So when we do have questions, I'll bring them up to our speakers. But like Tamika said, try to save most of those questions for the end. We'll get through the content and then we'll get there. So in terms of what we're doing today, we'll have a little bit of a check-in, who we are, obviously. And Armin and Perry will talk about their experiences and a little bit of an overview of Palo Alto Networks as a company. Then we'll have my lovely boss, Michael Bullock, speak about resume importance and key considerations for your resume. So this will be a real big help for all of you to get some tips and tricks, review your resume if you haven't already reviewed it a gazillion times during this intern season, and take those tips and basically apply them and apply to some jobs, specifically ones at Palo Alto Networks if you're interested. But yeah, we're gonna get started there. And if Armin, you can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this will also be popped up again at the end. But if everyone wants to just grab their phones or whatever can scan QR codes nowadays, I don't know if I'm dating myself, but scan this code and it will link you up to our positions that are currently available if you're interested in applying after this event or at kind of any time in the next couple weeks. So I'll leave this for maybe a bit more just so everyone can kind of scan it as they come in.
Yeah, just to add to what Alana's saying about the QR code, this QR code does not link to every position we have. It links to kind of several that we are actively looking for candidates for, and it will tag you as you came from this event, which means that we can prioritize you when we're looking through the applicants. You can also go to the Early in Career website, and you'll see there's probably well over 100 positions on there you can apply to as well. But if you do it through the QR code, we will be able to see you're HBCU Connect attendee, and we can prioritize. So important to know.
Okay, we'll pop this up again, but hopefully everyone was able to scan. If not, we can, even at the end of the event, maybe just send it out to all the participants as well, just so you have it. But yeah, we'll kind of go to the next slide and I'll introduce everyone on the call. So today's speakers, I mean, like I said, I'm just in the background managing the chat, but my name's Alana. I am an early talent senior tech recruiter at Palo Alto Networks. I'm still quite new here. I think I'm a couple months into my role. I'm actually from Toronto, Canada, so Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So I am, I guess, what am I, East Coast, but north of probably all of you. And yeah, I'm really excited to be at Palo Alto Networks. It's a great company. I have some amazing colleagues, which I now will also introduce as well. And the opportunities are great for internships. So that's me. I'll introduce Armin and Perry and Mike. They will be reintroducing themselves in a more detailed way, but Armin is the diversity engagement early talent lead. I've been working with him on a lot of HBCU Connect events, other events across the board, and he's amazing. So he'll kind of get into a little bit more details about himself. Don't want to spoil it. Perry also is an early talent recruiter, GTM recruiter. So on the other side of our network, Perry works with a lot of students such as yourselves. And then Mike is, like I said, he's my manager, so put in a good word for me, but Mike is our early talent tech recruiting manager here at Palo Alto as well. They'll all kind of get into their details, so I'll let you guys take it away.
Thank you for that, Alana. So first of all, good evening, everyone. It is so nice to meet you, or good afternoon, or good evening, good afternoon, good morning. But my name is Armand Hodge. I am the MSI Engagement Community Outreach lead for the early talent team here at Palo Alto Networks. So I've been here at Palo Alto Networks for almost about a year now. My journey goes very back to my roots. I'm born and raised here in the DMV, the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, born and raised in PG County. I graduated from Bowie State University, go Bulldogs, BSU. I majored in mass communications while I was at Bowie State. So just a little bit of background about me. Growing up, I really wanted to be on radio. I wanted to be in broadcast. I might be dating myself a little bit, but for some of you who might know who Donnie Simpson is, or who might know who Tom Joyner is, or Ricky Smiley, or Howard Stern, I wanted to be that radio personality. So I majored in mass communications at Bowie State University. And while at Bowie State, I had a chance to really do some really cool internships. And my goal coming out of Bowie State was I really had this vision of, I wanted to be a media mogul. So I wanted to be like Sean P. Diddy Combs. I wanted to be like Steve Harvey. I wanted to be like Stuart Scott, Clarence Avant, Byron Allen. I wanted to be a combination of all these men who really do so many extraordinary things in the world of communications and media and entertainment. But as life went on, I started to have other endeavors that I wanted to pursue. And I learned that when I was at my first internship at Comcast Corporation here in DC. I was a corporate communications intern in the government affairs office. And that was a very unique internship. I got to travel to many conferences and collaborate on a lot of public policy issues in regards to those underrepresented communities. And from there, I was able to do a number of other cool internships, working on Capitol Hill, working for the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, continuing to also work in broadcast, different forms of media relations, PR. And then my first job was at Sirius XM. I was a digital communications producer where I got to do a lot of editing and a lot of production for a lot of radio shows. And while I was at Sirius XM, I really started hitting that plateau where I really wanted to get involved in tech. I really wanted to be at that convergence of technology and communications. So for me, as time would go on and as I started to, climb and progress through my career, I made a decision that, okay, if tech is something that I really want to do, then I'm just going to go big for it whatsoever. And so as I started to climb throughout my career, I started to realize that I needed to align myself and get that knowledge and education so I can be successful in that DEI and in that branding space within tech. I went off to the University of Washington, where I got a number of professional certificates, one in digital marketing, one in content strategy and storytelling, because I started to realize that I wanted to help tech companies tell their story, but also help them with their diversity, equity, inclusion strategies and paying it forward to the next generation of those who want to get involved in tech. So I went off to get my MBA because I wanted to figure out and learn how the business units work with engineers and how engineers work with business. And while I was getting my MBA, I was also at the Boeing company before I got to Palo Alto Networks, where I got to work on a number of branding and DEI issues. And then from there, during the pandemic, I got laid off, like many other millions of folks during the global health pandemic. And it was Palo Alto Networks where I attended a conference at the National Black MBA Association. And the true thing that I love about Palo Alto Networks was they were one of the only companies throughout my career that asked me, what do you want to do? And I told them that I want to pay it forward to the next generation. I want to help students who don't have that access to resources be able to cross that bridge into tech. And they said, well, we feel like you're the great guy, and we feel like you're the right guy who can help us with that. So next thing you know, I go through a few rounds of interviews, and the rest is history. I'm here at Palo Alto Networks leading DEI engagement for the university relations team. So that's a little bit about my communications to tech journey. And I'll pass it off to Perry.
Thanks, Armand. I don't think my journey will be quite as lavish as yours was, but we'll make it work. But hey, everybody, I'm Perry Wright. I'm an early talent go-to-market and general administrative recruiter here at Palo Alto Networks. I've been here for about 5.5, going on 6 months, and I must say it's been a really, really good experience. Actually, an amazing experience so far. So as you can see, I was born and raised in Jackson, Mississippi. Yes, I'm from the dirty South. I attended high school at Jackson State University. I attended high school at Madison Central High School. And when I was in high school, I actually worked on our media team. We called it MCTV. And I was one of the anchors for the early morning news segment, and used to give just updates on, sports, updates on clubs, organizations that were currently looking for new members on campus, just whatever news outlet, media outlet we had, like we would give updates on that. So that really inspired me to go into journalism, to go into media. And growing up, I looked up to Stuart Scott. I looked up to Stephen A. Smith. Just seeing, Black men on sports television, like that was just my dream at that time. So while at Jackson State University, I was a part of, I actually studied mass communications, and I was a part of NABJ. We actually, me and a couple of the classmates, we got invited to attend the NABJ short course back in 2015. And we actually participated in a competition to where we had to put on a news segment. We developed, we gathered stories on campus from like issues that was going on. I think I did a report on like potholes and like the lack of like parking spaces on campus. It was something as small as that, but we ended up placing in that competition, and I ended up winning the reporter, like the best sports reporter award in that competition. So that really gave me high hopes for just pursuing a career in media and journalism. I actually later that year, well, actually during that summer, I interned at a news station, and during the internship, it kind of changed my mind just about the direction in which I wanted to go in journalism and media, just because I thought that, I think as a younger guy, before I really just got that exposure, I saw like the glitz and glamour of working in media, being on TV, but I didn't know that you actually have to go out and you have to get your own story. You have to do your own photography. Sometimes you may not have a photog, and you have to do your own photography and go back to the studio and edit it. And, everything has to be in before the 5 p.m. report. And I just saw like the stress that the news reporters, because you really have to start off as a reporter. I saw the stress that they were under on a daily basis to only earn under 40K a year, especially being in a market, like Jackson, Mississippi. So it kind of just changed my outlook on where I wanted to go. So if you can move to the next slide. So yeah, I actually, after college, well, actually this was during my senior year, I interned at Aviall, a Boeing company. And there I was a marketing communications intern. So my background in journalism and communications, it really helped me through this internship, because I was actually on the digital marketing team to where like I could use my, skills, my media skills to help to create a digital banner to what I put on like the .com on their website that would promote like their competitive product line, because they were trying to, increase sales for certain products, and I helped to create a digital banner to do so. And actually it was a lot of success. It was really tough transitioning from, school, coming from an HBCU and going into the business world, because working for Boeing is definitely a shirt and tie, white male dominated environment. So it was definitely tough, but I'm very grateful for that just because it taught me valuable skills. But after that internship was over, although it was very successful and I did receive a job offer, I didn't accept it because I didn't think marketing was the way to go, just because I did well, but I didn't see myself just having that creative mind to be able to come up with new things over and like, all the time. So I was just applying for different jobs and recruiting stumbled up on me. Outsource was my first company. I started with them back in September of 2015, and that was telecommunications. That was telecommunications company. Well, actually, it was a telecommunications staffing company. So we hired techs to work for like various companies that did telecom. So I actually recruiting fell into my lap back in 2015, and at first, it was just a job that would get me by until I found out what I actually wanted to do. But I realized that, hey, I'm really good at this. I'm really good at building relationships, and I actually enjoy. I get fulfillment out of helping people that look like you and I, receive like their ideal job or sometimes their dream job. So I did that for a while. I worked at Outsource for about 5 years. I actually left for a little while and then came back. And so it treated me really well. Got a few promotions when I was there, but I just felt as though I had hit my cap working there, and I started searching for new opportunities. And Palo Alto Networks. Good. So yeah, Palo Alto Networks came knocking at my door. I received an in-mail LinkedIn from one of my counterparts, Salma, and I knew nothing about cybersecurity, but she mentioned diversity and inclusion in the email. She said, we want you to help with our diversity and inclusion efforts. So I'm just like, okay, I'm definitely interested in this. So, but during the interview process, when I was interviewing to work for Palo Alto Networks, I could just really see the effort, like how like happy like people were, like just through the interview process. It was very thorough. It was great chemistry between, my manager, Courtney, and I, and my director, Grace, and I. It was really good chemistry between us, and they just really seemed very genuine. And, they were telling me about the opportunity, and it seemed like a really good opportunity. So, starting here and being here for almost 6 months has been a really good experience. I'm able to help with the diversity and inclusion efforts. And I think we have to, we work hard to meet like a certain number in terms of diverse hiring. So just excited to, keep learning and keep growing here.
Thank you for that, Perry. Before we move it on, move it forward and pass the baton over to Mike, I did want to give a few tidbits about Palo Alto Networks, and just pretty much supporting and securing you all here on this call, even the world. That's how we fulfill our mission. And our mission is that we are the cybersecurity partner of choice and protecting our digital way of life. Our vision is we envision a world where each day is safer and more secure than the one before. And we are a global company. We are, one thing that I truly do love about Palo Alto Networks is we are global. We are a 10,000 employee company. And even though our headquarters is located in Santa Clara, California, we have offices spread out across the entire country and even across the world. So just offices to name here in the United States, Dallas, Texas. We even have some here in the DMV area, Reston and McLean, and then there's some in the New York areas. And then from a global blueprint, we're located in some countries such as Costa Rica, the UK, Israel, Singapore, Australia, South Africa. So that's one of the true things that I love is that we're as the world is growing, we're growing with the world as well. And just some of our values. We pride ourselves on disruption in a good way. I feel like a lot of times when people hear disruption, they look at it as being a negative, and we pride ourselves as being disruptive in the fact of having that innovation. Execution. We're all about execution, flawless execution in everything that we do. We pride ourselves on collaboration. Everyone here are truly cross-functional collaborators. Integrity. We definitely pride ourselves in the work that we do. And like how me, Perry, and Alana have already mentioned on this call already, we pride ourselves on inclusion in all aspects. And then I'll hand it over to Mike, who will take the baton and give you all some great tidbits on how to form and structure your resume. Go ahead, Mike.
Thanks, Armand. One thing I will ask Armand, can we go back a slide? Just to the values. So the values are really important to the company. And these values are extra important and extra valuable because they actually were created by the employees at the company as well. So there was a kind of a questionnaire that went out to the employees, and they asked us what the values of the company were. And this is what they came up with. The only thing that I think got changed was initially we had innovation, and we switched that out for disruption. But they're really great values. And this is my sales pitch as a recruiter as well. I tend to reorder them a little bit. And I talk about how we have to be disruptive as we are a security company. We have to disrupt ourselves before someone disrupts us. And the best way to do that is to be especially inclusive. The more inclusive we are, the more skills we can bring into the company. And if we have those people collaborate together, we're going to come up with some great ideas that really are disrupting the market that we're in. And then if we work with integrity, we can execute really well. And that's why everyone that comes into this company can potentially make a huge impact. So even on that simple slide, it's just such a good slide. It talks about why it's a great company to work at. But yeah, thank you, Armand. I'll introduce myself now. But yeah, so as Alana said at the beginning, I manage the early talent technical recruiting team. I have a counterpart who does non-technical, which still includes a lot of technical roles as well. But I've been at Palo Alto Networks for about 6.5 years now. And I've seen the company grow from about 2,200 people to, I think we must be close to 11,000 now. There has been a lot of change in that time. I often joke that I've probably worked for 4 companies, even though it's all Palo Alto Networks, from a small 2,000 person company to a much bigger 11,000 person company. And the products have changed over that time, as is the culture of the company. But those core values that we mentioned are still there as well. A little bit on my background, everyone's probably struggling to understand me because I'm from England originally. So I've lived in the US for 10 years now, so I still have a bit of an accent, but I have picked up a lot of the US words as well. So I originally worked in insurance in the UK, and then I met my wife on my travels, and she was from California, so she managed to convince me that the sunshine of California was better than the grey rain of the UK. So I jumped ship as quickly as I could, and now I live in the US. In the picture, you can see me with my 2 daughters. My youngest son was obviously being held by my wife at that time. He didn't make the picture. I'll have to find a new picture for that one too. But yeah, on my side of the team, I recruit for all of our software engineering positions and mostly in our product organization. So really it's our product organization, our IT organization, and a lot of the more security focused roles would fall on my team as well. So what I want to talk about today, so if we can jump to the next page, it's about the resume and how important it is. So one thing to note from what I'm going to tell you is that all recruiters and sources are different. Everyone's looking at different things on the resume, and everyone will have their own process. Secondly, all companies are different as well. So just because I'm advising something doesn't mean that that will be applicable to every company. Some companies, for example, I'll talk about 1-page resumes and multiple page resumes. Companies will have different policies on that as well. But yeah, it's important to know that this is kind of how I recruit. And I think most of my team recruits in a similar way. So the first question is, why is a resume so important? And it's really quite simple. It's the first thing that any recruiter is going to see unless you're meeting them in person. So it's your first impression. It's the first chance you have to actually impress someone. And I can't kind of understate how important that is, because the other reason why it's so important is the resume won't get you the job, but it can lose you the job if it's not good. So if you have a weak resume that's missing certain information, for example, recruiters are extremely busy. We have lots of candidates to go through, especially in this early talent space, where there can be over 1 million candidates a year, all looking for a job at the same time. So we don't have time to kind of educate every candidate that's applied. So sometimes if a resume just doesn't fit and doesn't tell us what we need to know, it could mean that we just skip past the resume because we've got 500 applicants, and we're also trying to fill 30 to 40 positions at the same time. So it's really important, and I emphasize that again, it's not going to get you the job, but it can certainly lose you the job. So if we look at the next slide, there is an example of what some resume advice can do. So we can bring both of them up, Armand. But here's 2 resumes for you. And just to highlight kind of the difference, this is the same candidate. So the same candidate's resume, 2 different versions. Looking at the first version, this is what I was presented. And it came through from a referral. So I was asked to actually look at this, and I looked at this and I thought, oh, there's some good technical skills in there, but it doesn't look like a resume that my hiring teams are gonna get excited about. So after a conversation, I spent 30 minutes talking to this candidate, and he produced the resume on the right afterwards. And if I was to do a poll now and ask you which resume would you move forward with, I'm sure nearly everyone would pick the one on the right-hand side. So this is the same person with the same skills. They haven't learned anything in between the conversation. It's just with a little bit of guidance, you can really produce a resume that's not going to get you rejected without too much consideration. Okay, key considerations. So we can bring them all up, please, Armand. I think there's 4. Yeah, so these are things to consider when you're kind of building your resume. The first thing is, with your resume, you're not there to explain anything. So try and make it self-explanatory as much as you can. If you are saying that you did a certain project, then give as much information about that project as you can. Explain the kind of skills that you used in that as well. Don't assume that everyone will understand what you're writing about. The other thing to note is that the first person that looks at your resume is normally a recruiter or a sourcer. They are not, if you're applying for an engineering position, that recruiter might have no engineering background at all. So you actually have to try and explain as much as you can about the classes that you're doing as well. So don't assume that because you're doing a computer science major, every recruiter knows you're doing data structures and algorithms classes. That's kind of an example of that. The second thing is, ensure that everything you've done is relevant. If you're kind of adding, this can depend on how much content you have as well. If you have a really full resume with lots of experience and lots of projects, make sure that the projects that you're including are relevant to the job you're applying for. Same with kind of work experience as well. If you don't have much work experience, include everything you've done. But if you've had an internship doing software engineering, for example, that's going to be the priority. And if we see that you've done some work experience, and maybe in a biology company or something like that, that's going to be less relevant. So if it comes down to it, we want to see everything that's relevant to the role you're applying for. But if you don't have a ton of stuff, feel free to kind of complement that with other work experience as well. The third point, this is where a lot of interviews go wrong. Make sure you can answer questions on everything you include. This is much more on the technical skills. People will include their technical skills and they'll say that they know certain things. Once it gets to the interviewer then tells me, well, they had this on the resume, but they couldn't answer any questions on that. So that's really important to know. If you're going to put something on your resume, be prepared that someone will ask questions about that. And it's not necessarily going to be your latest internship or your latest work experience. It could be a skill on your resume which is kind of hidden away, but it just catches someone's eye. So make sure you've got that knowledge of everything on there. The fourth thing is read the job descriptions. This is a really important. If you're applying to maybe a certain position that you're really, really keen on, the job description tells you exactly what the recruiter's looking for. If you have all the skills that the job description is asking for, and you know you have all that knowledge, make sure that that is somehow included on your resume. Example, if the job description is saying that you need to know Python programming, and you know Python programming, but Python's not mentioned on your resume, that's a problem. So make sure that you read the job description, and if you have certain skills that they're looking for, include them on the resume as well. On the next slide, we're going into more of the details here. So there's a lot of words on here, so I'll try and kind of keep it fairly simple. But when you're building your resume, you might not necessarily have all the extracurriculars. They come with time, so a lot of the kind of freshman candidates that we speak to won't have all those extracurriculars. But everyone should have those essential skills on the left-hand side. Full name and legal name as well. It's important that we have your legal name, and we do see a lot of people kind of using nicknames as well. But when it comes down to making offers and all that kind of stuff, the good stuff, we do need your legal name as well. So please make sure your name is on there. A summary of who you are and what you are trying to achieve. So one of the questions we get, and I think it might be covered later, is about cover letters. I don't read cover letters, if I'm honest to you. I recommend a summary instead. Usually what a cover letter provides is all the information in your resume in a nicely written kind of script, if you for want of a better word. But a summary will be fairly simple and concise. So who are you, or what you're trying to achieve? It's fairly simple. You could say I'm majoring in computer science. I'm looking for a job as a software developer, and my preference is kind of machine learning and AI. That would be a good example. The reason that's important is because as a recruiter, I want to know that the jobs I have are going to be of interest to you. And if I do make you an offer, it's likely that you're going to be interested in accepting that offer. So if I see that you're interested in machine learning and you apply to a job doing testing or automation, they're not the same. So are the chances of you accepting that diminished? They probably are. They're probably a much lower chance. So I like to try and find people that have interests that match the job as well. Contact information is incredibly important. If we don't have contact information, it's obvious, but we can't contact you. We don't necessarily need phone numbers or a physical address, but email. Even if you just had your name and an email address, that would be the essential things that we need. Other things you might like to add, a LinkedIn page. We always like to kind of connect on LinkedIn as well. GitHub, if you are a programmer and you want to show examples of the code that you've written, having a GitHub account is recommended. Many of my hiring managers and interviewers will look at those GitHub links as well if you have one. And also, if you're looking for more of a design position, maybe a UI front end kind of related role, a portfolio of your work would be a good thing to add as well. Don't think that we're going to judge your design abilities based upon your resume. That's not how it works. We tend to look at what you've got in your portfolio. So make sure your resume is fairly simple and not too elaborate. Education. Education is important. We like to know what school you went to or going to, and we like to know what you're majoring in as well. I also mentioned the classes a little bit before, but as you go through education, you'll add more advanced classes. The advanced classes are what we want to see. If you've got an introduction to computer science, that's great in your freshman year. In your senior year, it's not so important. You'll probably have things much more advanced in the kind of computer science area. GPA, this is a common debated area, and this is where Alana will kind of testify to this. We have a lot of, not arguments, but discussions with hiring managers about GPA. So for my team, we don't look at GPA as a requirement, but we know that some hiring managers do want people with a 3.5 or higher, and they will have to be from a top engineering school. That's not how we work on the recruiting team. That's just the hiring manager requirements. We don't always meet them, and we oppose those as well as much as we can. We understand it can be a good indication of someone who might be a high performer, but we also understand that everyone has different circumstances in their life, where maybe they can't commit their entire spare time to their studies, and maybe they have to do 2 part-time jobs, and that can be an additional attribute that we look for as well. So GPA, include it if you like. If it's good, I would definitely include it, but just know that we don't always look at it. And if it's not as impressive as you think it should be, maybe you leave it off there. And if someone asks for it, provide it. If they don't, move on. And then the last thing in terms of education is the graduation date. And I've put that in bold and underlined it because that's actually the first thing that I look at on any resume. And the reason is because I have internship positions and I have full-time positions that my team recruits for. And the graduation date can often tell me which one you're eligible for. So in terms of our internship roles, we do have a requirement that whoever we're kind of considering must be returning to school after the internship, even if it's just for 1 semester. So that to me says anyone who is graduating December 22 or after would be eligible for an internship. Anyone graduating before that, we would be considering for a full-time position. That can vary between companies, but typically, if someone's graduating in May 2022, I would be looking to hire that person into a full-time role right now. So important to have the grad date on there. Some people will just put the year. If you just put 2022, that's not helpful because it could be May, full-time, could be December, intern. So being specific about your graduation date is important as well. And you'll see skills I've kind of highlighted a few times as well. But skills is kind of what we look for on the technical side. We do keyword searches. So it might be the keyword search is looking for Python. So if we type in Python and you've got Python on your resume, you show up in my search. If you don't have Python on your resume, you don't show up on my search. It's pretty simple, but it's an easy way for a recruiter to narrow down the number of candidates and a number of resumes that we're going to review. So one thing I advise about skills is I want you to include as much as possible, and I want you to be able to answer as many questions as possible about those skills. So what you might want to consider is noting the level of proficiency. If you are, in your own mind, kind of really, really strong with Python, then put Python on there and just advise that you are proficient. Never say expert. No one's an expert. Even our best engineers would say they're not an expert. If you say you're an expert, they'll ask you expert level questions, and you'll get into trouble. So never put expert, but if you put proficient or intermediate, that's a kind of a much more accurate probably assessment. If you have a key skill that you've just touched upon, maybe you've just started doing some Java programming, you could always put beginner next to that as well. If you do that, then you show up in the keyword searches when I search for Java, but when I find your resume, it says you're a beginner, and you've set the expectation with me that you are not the best Java programmer I'll find, but you have some basic Java knowledge. That way you stay in the search, and you have the recruiter look at your resume. So there's a little tip to kind of how you stay in the search, but you're also very honest about your level of ability as well. So keep that in mind when you're kind of filling out your skills. And then projects. So projects is the last one on there. So school projects, everyone should be doing projects in school related to their major. So include those details. Again, highlight the skills that you're using in those projects. So if you've said you know Python in your skills, and then you say you've done a project in Python as well, you're showing me that you have a much stronger knowledge of Python than someone that's just listed it once. So those are the kind of the essentials. And then on the extracurricular side, these are the things that can make you stand out. Everyone's kind of going to school and doing probably very similar classes to everyone else. So it's important that you can somehow make yourself stand out. These are also things that not everyone will have. And the reason they make you stand out is because they're difficult to attain as well. So working from the top down, any other projects that you're working on, are you building an app in your spare time? That's a hugely positive thing to do if you're spending your own spare time working on an application to find the nearest Taco Bell or whatever it is that you're interested in. And even if it fails, it doesn't matter if the project doesn't work. It's the fact you're trying to kind of enhance your skills as well. Again, highlight what technologies you're using to make that project. Work experience. Are you lucky enough where you've had an internship in a tech company that's relatable to the job you're applying for? Or do you have any work experience at all? Maybe it's more a customer facing job that you've had in the past, which would show that you're able to communicate with people. So that's kind of important as well. So work experience is good to see too. The other things, awards and certificates, again, they look great on a resume, not something I particularly look for. We do offer certifications from our company as well. So if I saw one of those, that would be a big positive and would create a talking point as well. But I don't typically go out there looking for people with those awards. Hackathons and competitions. This one I do like. I especially like this one because hackathons show that you actually like fixing things, like creating creating code, creating solutions to problems. And usually hackathons happen on a weekend. So if someone's giving up their weekend to go and write code, it looks good on a resume as well. And then competitions, I usually look at the competitions more on the security side. We don't, despite being a cybersecurity company, we don't require everyone knows everything about security. But when we are looking for security skills, there is certain competitions that we can look for on a resume that help us identify those people that might be interested in penetration testing or hacking and things like that. And then hobbies and interests. I love learning what people's hobbies and interests are. It creates a talking point for me as a recruiter. If someone tells me, like if I've learned that Armand likes P. Diddy, I can suddenly start talking to him about music. If Alana tells me that she's a massive Game of Thrones fan, I can ask her a question about Game of Thrones. If someone says they like reading, I can ask them what's the latest book they've read. As a recruiter, it's good to have a really easy opening question when I'm screening people to make people feel comfortable. So if you tell me what your hobbies and interests are, it also makes you more personable as well. And then I could tell you stories about when managers and students have had the same interests and they've just bonded instantly. And even though they were less technically qualified, the manager loved them so much because of that common interest that they hired them as well. That has happened in the past. I think it was when I was at eBay, there was someone who loved cars. And the example, they asked them what was his favorite car. Most people would say something like a Lamborghini or a Ferrari. And this student had a really obscure reference. I don't even know what it was, but the manager knew exactly what the car was and they just bonded over that. So think about that. It could be something that bonds you to the team as well. I know that was a lot of information on that slide, so hopefully it went in. Other considerations, these things are fairly simple, so it won't take me too long to go through. Resume format, keep it simple. PDF, Word document, that's pretty much what I would recommend. Don't try and do anything too fancy with the file type. Sometimes when it comes through into our system, it can cause a problem, so we can't read it. And unfortunately, like I said at the beginning, recruiters are fairly busy. So we're not going to spend that time trying to figure out what it says or requesting another resume. So make sure it's a pretty standard file type. Pictures and graphs, I don't recommend them. They can mess with the format. And also, they don't typically add too much. So I don't recommend adding pictures or graphs to resumes. Resume layout, yes, multiple pages. So many people tell me that their schools tell them only to do a one-page resume. I don't care, to be honest. If you have enough information to go over one page, why would I want to get only a portion of your information? I want to see everything you've achieved. And if that means going on to 1.5 pages or 3 pages or 7 pages, then I want to see all of that. So schools will say, yeah, keep it to 1 page. And maybe it's a good idea to have a 1-page resume available in case a company wants that too. But as long as you're adding to your resume, keep adding to it. PhD resumes, they'll never have a 1-page resume. So don't feel like you have to keep it to 1 page unless that's requested specifically. Weighting of roles, projects. Yes, what I mean by weighting is think about what you've done most recently. That is the most accurate kind of level of your ability that we can see. So what you've done most recently, I would spend more time telling me about that than what you did 5 years ago. So that's kind of what I mean. So give us more information on the more recent things that you've done. Show me, don't tell me. So this is a little bugbear of mine that a lot of people will say, I'm a really strong leader. They might say, I've got great communication skills. And there's nothing to say that's not true, but I'm looking at a resume. Do I just trust you and think, oh, you've told me you're a great leader, so you must be a great leader? I can't do that. It's difficult. So what I recommend doing is, if you are a great leader and you have leadership skills, tell me about a time when you've led someone. Are you the president of a student organization? That's leadership. Have you worked on a project with 4 or 5 other people where you were in charge of kind of planning what happened in that project? Again, that's showing me that you've got leadership skills. Also shows me you've got good collaboration skills. And if you're working in a team of 4 or 5, you've probably got good communication skills as well. So think of ways that you can show me these skills rather than just telling me that you have them. And then cover letters I covered before. It's good to have one just in case a company requires it. But I'm pretty sure everyone at Palo Alto Networks on our team would not spend time reading cover letters. We're going to dive straight into the resume and get to the real meat of what you've achieved so far. What's on the next page? I think the next page, yeah, here's a couple of examples. You don't need to be able to read everything, so I don't know if you can or not, but I know it's pretty small on my screen. These are some examples of resumes that we've seen, and I'm not saying that everyone has to have a resume with this much content either. These were exceptional resumes, but what I do like about these is the profile or the who am I that you can see on there. So the one on the right-hand side says, I'm someone who loves creating tools to make life easier for co-workers or customers. While jamming out to my favorite tunes, I do wear headphones, but silent singing is unavoidable. Now, that to me is a great summary because one, I love that this person has a sense of humor, but I met this person at a career fair, and when I was speaking to him, I read that and I knew exactly what team he would be a good fit for. And so he likes creating tools. We have an engineering tools team. I sent him across to that team and they hired him as an intern and then they hired him full time. So all based upon that summary at the top. Obviously, the rest of the skills were good too, but because of that summary, I was able to get him to the team that was most interesting. On the left-hand side, you'll see an example of another summary where someone's told me that they've got very good skills in communication. And he's very applied in the work that they undertake. Again, I don't know that's true. I've got no idea. But what I really liked about the next line where it says, I'm also passionate about cybersecurity with a focus on reverse engineering. Now, you don't need to know what reverse engineering is, but someone who's told me they're passionate about cybersecurity, applying to a cybersecurity company, that's one good thing. The second thing is, I know I have teams that need reverse engineering skills. So there's the second thing. Instantly, things tick in my mind and I send him to that team. They hire him as an intern and then they hire him full time as well. So it just shows you those summaries can be really important. And you'll also see there's completely different formats of the resume. One's gone for 1 column and the other's gone for 2 columns. So do whatever you like best, but try and keep things fairly standard. The one thing I highlight on these is the one on the right has no hobbies. Didn't make any difference. So you don't have to have everything I've talked about. The one on the left, he does have hobbies, but I don't remember speaking to him about any of those. He talks about malware books and bug hunting articles. That's very, very security related. So he's clearly very interested in the work that our company does. So here's some examples of resumes. I don't expect every resume to look like this, but hopefully there was something in this information that I provided that will help you go back and kind of create your resumes. If you need to do them again, do them again. If you need to just touch up one or two things, please do that as well. But I think that's my last slide. So if anyone has any questions, Alana, Perry, and Armand can also answer questions. But I'd love to kind of see what your thoughts are on everything I've presented. Do we have any questions, Alana?
So we didn't have many like during the presentation.
I have a question.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the info, everyone. I really appreciate it. I guess like in terms of the whole like first things first, like this is all based in California, correct? Like going to California.
For our actually, so if we're talking about where we hire, Zachary, then we actually hire all over the country.
Okay. Yeah.
It depends on the role though. So if you're looking for an internship, most of our internships will be remote this summer. They have been for the past 2 summers as well. But when we're looking at more of our kind of software development positions, a lot of them are based in California. But who knows how that may change in the next year or so. We're definitely getting more open to the idea of having remote engineers, but it would depend on the team essentially.
Okay. So I guess like I had a question mainly about like, okay, I guess like in terms of the hiring process. I mean, I wasn't here for the whole time. I had like a class. So is your traditional like software engineering, well, if you're applying for software engineering, obviously you guys look at the resumes to see that it's a fit, and thank you for all the tips that you gave us. But like in terms of the additional steps, would that be like your additional, you obviously have like an interview, right? Where you talk to the person, and then you have like some sort of coding test and things like that after, and you would have like these additional tests, or you might elaborate on that?
Yeah, of course, yeah. And thank you for asking that question. There's 2 different processes really. Depends whether you're applying for an internship or for full-time. And it may be different for Perry's roles as well. But on the internships, typically the interview process is supposed to be fairly simple. We try and keep our teams to interview no more than 2 or 3 times before we make a decision. But for our software kind of based roles, before you interview, we would actually send a programming assessment. The coding assessment that we send is, and I say this to everyone that I tell about this, it's not to find the best programmer in the world. It's purely to make sure that you have a minimum competency when it comes to programming. We're not expecting everyone to be an expert. This is for interns who are still in school, still learning. So we don't expect you to score 100%. And then the other nice thing about the coding assessment is we don't share the results with the hiring team, because if we did that, they'd all want the people that scored 100%. So even if you only scraped a pass, that doesn't matter. To us, it's a pass. So that's how we look at that. But yeah, for interns, we do the coding assessment, then we kind of move to interviews with the teams, and it would be 3, probably 2 or 3 45-minute interviews. For full-time roles, we don't use the same coding assessment. The teams will do more of a coding assessment in their interviews. So you'd probably do an initial screening interview with the team, and then for the next round, you'd probably do 4 or 5 interviews with the team, where they would ask you more specific questions on technology and coding related to their team and the product they're working on. But hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
For those with questions, make sure that you either use the raise hand option or ask your question in the chat. We want to keep this in order, not too chaotic. So if you have a question, drop it in the chat or raise your hand and you can ask it live and in person. And we have a few in the chat. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Shamika. Yeah, so Mike or whoever, I'm just like going through chat, they all came up. Okay, so we have, okay, a lot of questions about sponsorship. So Mike, if you just, or Mike or Armin or Perry, if you want to take a stab at just sponsorships for CPT and OPT. I got a question about that, a direct message. And then visa sponsorship for international students. And then just sponsorships in general. Maybe we'll just do a sponsorship spiel.
Do you want to cover your side first, Perry?
Yes. So with me, I handle, like I said, I handle general administrative and go-to-market. So that's every non-technical department that supports the company. For the non-technical roles, unfortunately, we won't be able to offer any type of sponsorship for our roles, from what I was told.
Yeah. And then for my side, for our product organization, which is most of our software development, hardware engineering, those kind of things, we do offer sponsorship. The only team that my team does not offer visa sponsorship for is our IT department, which can still have some technical roles. But to give you some perspective, out of my 100+ roles I have, only about 20 of them are IT, the rest are in product. So we do offer visa sponsorship. I'm guessing most people asking that question will be on a F1 visa. So we do kind of support the CPT for the internship, which your school will provide. And then when you'll obviously have OPT once you graduate, that you can use full-time for 3 years. And during that process, we will sponsor you for the H-1B visa as well. And then we do kind of support green card processes as well. So that's typically after 6 months of employment with the company. But it does vary by role on who sponsors and who doesn't. But if it's in the product organization, typically we do sponsor.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Okay, lots of questions. Okay, there was one about relocation assistance or housing assistance if things were to go in person. So I know right now we mentioned internships are remote, and then a lot of our full-time roles will get kind of transported, or the expectation is that you're in that local area. But Mike, what have they done in past, I guess, if things were in person?
Yeah, we do offer relocation. We offer a relocation stipend, so we give a cash amount. We haven't had to do it for our interns for 3 years because everyone's been remote. But for our full-time employees that we've asked to relocate, we have kind of provided some assistance. Okay,
great. I don't know if this is a Perry question or not, but there's a lot of questions about MBAs I see. So internships positions for MBA students. I know we have the academies, but I'm very technically focused. So maybe Perry or Mike.
I know with the product PMA Academy, they look for MBA students, but they want them to have like a cybersecurity background.
Okay.
Any other roles, it's not like any roles we have, like we'll take like for the non-technical roles for marketing, sales, like we would take MBA students, but the roles aren't like MBA focused. I know there was one other role that I believe Jackie received, like it was an MBA role, but I believe that one, I don't think that one is it's not available anymore.
Yeah, we do have some in IT. We do have some roles that I just saw something pop up about business data and analytics. Some of those roles would be in IT. Occasionally, they do look for MBAs as well. Business intelligence is another kind of role they might look for that. And then Perry's absolutely bang on, like the PMA Academy, which is the Product Management Academy. If you have a technical undergraduate degree, and you are pursuing an MBA, you could be considered for that, but they do really want strong technical ability in that Product Management Academy as well. But yeah, we don't have many kind of specific MBA targeting positions. Network engineering, that could be either. If you know a lot about computer networks, you are going to be very, very interesting to our company. That could also kind of work on Perry's side for the systems engineers in sales too. Anyone that knows about computer networks can pretty much plug into most of our teams. It would probably depend how much programming you want to do on top of that. But yeah, if computer networks, Python, Linux, C programming, our next generation firewall team would gobble you up if they could.
And if you're, with the network engineering, if you we're kind of wanted to be like in a customer facing role. The System Engineering Academy would be a good fit. With like the system engineering roles is very much so like it's half technical, half customer facing. No programming will be involved in that. You're pretty much learning our product so that you can communicate that and pretty much sell that and present that to our clients and handle them with any type of questions or issues that they may have. But you're pretty much helping to sell our products to our clients. So if you are technical, but you know, kind of don't want to just be on the computer all day coding and you want to be out in front of people, communicate with people, the SE System Engineering Academy would be a good fit. And they're currently hiring for that right now too.
I think they have 2 locations for that, Perry, as well. For the
Oh yeah,
SE.
so the location that they're hiring for is mainly right now is in Fargo, North Dakota, which I know everybody thinks Fargo, but you know, within the academy, I think it's 12 months. So it's a year you would be in the academy, and then you'd be able to, once you graduate from the academy, you'd be able to, you start applying to, you know, roles throughout the country. You could move to wherever you needed to, but wherever you wanted to, or wherever you got the job at, you know, first. But yeah, but while you're in the academy, you would have to be in Fargo, North Dakota. And they do offer relocation. They offer a bonus, your starting bonus, relocation, plus the salary.
Yeah, the QR code, Tamika will share it with everyone in a post-event email. So just take a look there if you have to pop off. Okay, so there's a couple questions about experience. So like they're kind of related. So don't have any hands-on experience. Other ways you can show you have experience. I have some experience, but no coursework. So they're kind of opposite, but if anyone wants to take that question.
Yeah, it depends on the role you're applying for and a lot of things in the team as well. If you were applying for an internship and it's a technical role, then you could obviously show your programming ability through the coding assessment we send out. So a lot of people will ace that coding assessment and they've got no work experience, for example. That gives us great material to kind of provide to the hiring teams as well. But I think if you don't have any work experience, highlight as much as you can about the experience you have within your education as well. So if you've done a computer science major, highlight the classes that you've done, highlight any projects you've done in those classes, and really kind of emphasize any kind of skills you kind of picked up. And if you don't have any work experience and you kind of don't graduate for a while, or even if you've already graduated, you can still start working on a project today. I know it's easy for me to say that. I don't know what's going on in everyone's lives. But if you can start building an app in your spare time for maybe 20 minutes every evening, you can start adding to your experience that way as well. Or you might want to look at some online kind of courses. There's all kinds of things. Like there's one called Hack the Box. If you're really interested in security, you could go check that out. Start playing around with some of the challenges there. Or if you have the ability to do so, like Coursera or Udemy, there's lots of kind of places out there where you can continue to add to your skill set as well, even if you don't have the work experience. But yeah, we don't always look for everyone to have 3 amazing internships. If we hired everyone like that, we'd have a very boring job. But yes, we don't need everyone to have incredible work experience. We can look at other things as well, like education.
Thanks, Mike. Will there be an opportunity to earn certifications during the internship?
I don't think, I don't know whether you have anything in the academies that go towards certifications. The company does have those certifications, but it would be more on the individual to go get it. But if you go do that in your spare time while you're kind of doing the internship, that's going to look really good to your team that you're interning on. But yeah, we do kind of make sure that they're well known to our interns. And if you want to go do one of those certifications, you certainly can. We're not going to stop you. We have a whole Flex series. Everything is called Flex. And we have Flex Learn. which actually means that you can go and kind of continue your learning within the company. I know for Alana and the rest of my team, I sent them a training on all the products that we have. So we can definitely provide little training, things like that. And then if you have a successful internship and you join full-time, we have our LEAP program where we continue your education there as well. So we do have curriculum that we provide, especially in the academies, like the SE Academy, where we make sure that you are learning still for at least the first couple of years.
Okay, a couple of questions on interview process. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, the QR code, I know everyone really wants the QR code. It will be sent again. If Armin, if you can pop it up again, just if you want. But yeah, there we go. Because everyone wants it. But yeah, there's a question about the recruiting process. So it is different on different teams. So like Perry's team has a different process than our team. But basically the question is, if I apply today and everything goes well, when should I be expecting an offer? So like start to finish timeline, I guess, is what they're asking. And then there's a professional development program for new grads. That's another question. And then interview process for product managers. So
Okay.
a lot of questions.
Yep. I can go through all of those. So the first one was timeline. Technically, we could meet you today. We could make you an offer. Is it before? Yeah, it's before 5 p.m. in Pacific time. We could potentially do something crazy like get an offer out within hours. It is possible. Realistically, that's not going to happen. But if someone did have a really tight decision deadline, we can move very quickly if we need to. I would say between 2 and 4 weeks would be a good average. But I'm not going to pretend that there aren't people that applied maybe longer ago and haven't heard back yet. No one needs to explain to us that there's that university recruiting black hole. We see it all the time where people tend to think, what the heck's going on? I applied months ago. So we're aware of that and we try and stop that from happening. But I would say once you kind of start speaking to a recruiter, I would expect 2 to 4 weeks. You should know whether you're going to get an offer or not. And if you don't know, your recruiter should be telling you exactly where you stand and what's happening. So that's the first one. The second one was on, is there any professional development for new grads?
Yeah, professional development, and then there the interview process for product managers.
Okay.
And then I have another question after, but I'll let you answer those two.
Okay, so anyone that's a new grad or like within like the first couple of years of graduation would join our LEAP program. And we do kind of give more professional development with that as well. In the technical space, we are starting to put together a curriculum where we can continue your technical knowledge, technical learning too. So there's a lot of tools and technologies that you may or may not have heard of, such as Kubernetes or Docker. These are skills that our teams are looking for, but most people don't learn in school. So we are trying to provide more of an education on those skills as well as those kind of professional skills as well. We'll do courses and classes and events to help facilitate that learning too, even to the extent that we might give advice on RSUs, which are restricted stock units. So we give stock to our employees. We might do a session on how they work, for example, or a tax session, which can be essential when you're starting your career, because I still don't understand how the tax works in this country. And I probably never will. Luckily, my wife does. And then on the third point, PM. So it depends whether you're looking for an internship or full-time. If you're looking for an internship, we have several PM positions open right now. Alana, I know for a fact, has at least one. So if you want a PM internship, make sure you connect with Alana. But I do have some under a different recruiter on my team as well. So we probably have about 10 internships for PMs. And if you're looking for full-time, I think the only full-time PM roles we have are part of our product management academy. It's very, very exclusive. It's very limited. There's only a few positions, and they're really looking for kind of people to come in at that very, very high level. It's the example that we gave where if you have an undergraduate degree that's technical and you've got a master's degree or an MBA, that's kind of what they're looking for in that academy. But yeah, we definitely have openings in PM. It might be more of a technical marketing engineer as well, but we definitely have openings there.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think they asked about like the interview process. So for each role, like it really kind of depends on the team. So like, for example, I have PM roles and it's probably going to be like 2 rounds of interviews or a recruiter screen and then 2 rounds of interviews with, someone on the team and maybe the hiring manager. In terms of what that will actually look like in detail, your recruiter will kind of walk you through that once you get to that step. But we do have, like, for example, I have some researcher roles, which are a little bit more in depth in the interview. So there might be 3 rounds of interviews, but typically it's 2 to 3 rounds on the technical or product side of things for interns. And then there's a whole other ballgame for full-time. It can be up to what, Mike, like maybe 4 to 5 interviews, depending on the role and the technical capability and all of that. I know we're talking PM here, so it's different, but they differ is basically what I'm saying. A couple more questions, and they will differ on Perry's side as well, and like the GTM and that side as well. Okay, sorry, more questions. Okay, professional development program for new grads. Did we ask that one already? I think we might have. Okay. Are you still hiring? Oh, something about the MBA related internships. So yes, I think as Perry mentioned, he did share the link. We can share that with you. We have those academies. They're on our early career page or our website. But as Perry mentioned, it's not necessarily like MBA specific related internships like you may see at a consulting firm where it's like MBA track, right? We have roles that will, incorporate those business elements, or you could have an MBA and be a product manager, but they're not necessarily specific to MBA only, if that makes sense. So just take a look at the internships and whatever interests you, apply if you have those skills. I hope I'm answering that right, everyone. Are you still hiring for systems engineers roles? If so, how far after graduation can you apply? I'll probably hand it over to Perry. I don't know if he's here.
My bad, I was muted. So yeah, like I mentioned, they're still hiring. The biggest need is for our Fargo, North Dakota location. I believe that will start in August of 2022. But I think the furthest grad date is 2019, if I'm not mistaken. They may be lenient on like December 2018. But I know you should be in the clear 2019. But yeah, they are actively hiring for that role. That one is on the QR code, the system engineering role. But if you want to talk more about it, please add me on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
I can direct you. I can definitely direct you. Matter of fact, let me put my LinkedIn in the chat. I can definitely direct you to the recruiter who is hiring for that system engineering role.
Okay.
Yeah, and what I would add to that is just because we are the early talent team, it doesn't mean that we're the only team hiring. So if you have graduated maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago when you're on the call, we still are growing at a rapid pace as a company. There is positions across the whole company. So if you connect with one of us on the call, we can definitely get your resume across to the relevant team on the professional recruiting side as well. So please don't think you can't apply if you're not a recent grad. We are hiring across the board.
Yep. And then I guess the other question would be, how difficult will the software engineer technical interviews be? How in depth will you be tested on data structures and algorithms? And then they put full time.
Yeah,
that's a loaded question.
Yeah, how difficult it will be, only you can tell me how difficult it is. I'm not an engineer, and 2, it depends on kind of your level of knowledge. So some people might find it easy, some people might find it really difficult. What I would say is we have been educating our hiring managers on the product side for a long time now. But what we kind of look for is strong programming ability. We are looking for the computer science fundamentals. So things like data structures and algorithms would be a pretty key skill that they're looking for. But we've also educated them so much so that they know that the positions they're hiring for are not for people with 5 or 10 years experience. They're hiring people out of school who have not always had a full-time position or an internship in this role. So they should be willing to offer some mentorship and some guidance as well. So to give an example, our interns, they not only have a manager, they have a buddy who will help them on the day-to-day. The same should apply to our full-time hires as well. So we're not expecting you to be an expert on data structures and algorithms. We're not expecting you to know everything about computer networks or cloud computing or be an expert in AI and machine learning. But there would be a certain level that you'd have to meet, and that could vary by team. If you're going for a machine learning engineering position, the level of question is going to be much more intense than if you're going for maybe a software engineering test position where they're really looking for a Python programmer to write scripts. It varies by role, varies by team, and it's all kind of discretionary for the team. So the best way to find out is apply, and we'll try and get you in the interview process, and you can tell us how difficult it is. And was it Robert that asked that? I think it was. But good question, Robert.
Yeah, and then people are talking about
put it that way.
Leak Code. Yeah, Leak Code, I guess, is like a platform to help you prep, I guess. I didn't know this.
HackerRank or Codility, if you want to go practice coding, they offer some kind of free coding playgrounds, if you want. I don't know what they call them.
Yeah. I'll write them in the chat. Okay, it looks like we don't have any other questions. But another thing I would suggest students do, like on the internship level or even new grads as well, is like use your network. So if you have LinkedIn or some other type of network through your school, connect with someone who may be a former intern at the company that you want to work for. So like, let's say if you're looking at Palo Alto Networks, like, and you see someone, connect with them on LinkedIn, say, hey, I would love to learn about your experience. And like, I always find that gives you really good insight into the company. Your recruiter can also help you connect with someone as well when you're kind of going through that process, but it's kind of good to get that peer level support. So I would really recommend that as well. I think it just helps you kind of expand your network regardless.
Yeah, and if to Sean, if you are an algo expert, please connect with me directly. I'll happily find you some openings.
Well, it looks like those are all of our questions for tonight. We thank y'all for asking those questions, raising your hands, putting it in the chat box, whatever you needed to do. These are some really great questions. So I hope you all were able to gain a lot of knowledge from this event tonight. As you can see, we've got the QR code posted up. We've had it posted up for a while. Scan that, because that will link you to our event, and they will prioritize your resume, being that you attended this event tonight. You will see links to available roles. So make sure that you scan that. We will also send it out in our post-event email a little bit later after tonight's event. It will also include our post-event survey as well as a recording of tonight's event. So stay tuned for that. Before we wrap up and let y'all go, Mike, do you have any last words that you want to leave with the people?
Yeah, I would really encourage everyone to apply. We have totally changed the way we kind of operate as a company. The culture's totally changed. I love what Perry and Armand were saying about how inclusive this company is and how it attracted both of them to the company as well. And I feel like a lot of companies will say this, but we really are living this. And I've seen the company change in my 6.5 years. So we have changed the expectations of our hiring teams. So please don't feel that you are not qualified to apply. Please don't feel that because you don't know anything about security, you cannot apply. Please apply and let us make that decision for you, because so many people will say, I can't make it on that team. Please don't be that person. Please apply and let us kind of work you through the process, and we can guide you through. And if you want more one-on-one advice, everyone on the call, Armand, Alana, myself, and Perry, are happy to kind of help out where we can. So please apply. You never know what you can achieve until you put your name out there.
Great advice.
Yeah, one more thing I want to say too. Mike did say something about GPAs too as well. Apply regardless. Like, don't, like, if you have the skills and you have the experience and whatever it is, it's like, don't be like, oh, my GPA is not high enough. Please don't, because like if it's one of my roles, I'm not looking at your GPA. That's for sure. So please apply. Like, I want you to feel like your skills are more, like, it's not just about one thing on your resume. So keep that in mind as well.
Great advice. Make sure that you connect with these speakers tonight on LinkedIn and take the advice, apply for those roles, whether you feel like you're qualified or not. I think that's great advice. Be on the lookout. This is not your last time seeing us do an event with Palo Alto Networks. They will be doing something with us in the future. So be on the lookout, and you all have a great night.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Everyone, bye-bye.